Hey there everybody, Daikaiju Tony is back after a much long needed hiatus. And well, after roughly 6 months of reading almost every Superman comic I could get my hands on, putting me into a somewhat of a debt that I'm kind of repaying via not so legal means, I decided to shift gears on the direction of this channel, to focus more on The Man of Steel. No, not that movie, or that comic, maybe for a later video. Because I figured it'd be a more productive use of my time rather than just sitting around doing PCP and gooning to Marvel Rivals. Here is my top 10 alternate Superman suits.
Now, what counts as an alternative suit? Well, whatever deviates from the traditional iconography of Superman's classic red and blue. But that doesn't mean it can maintain those colors. It could be something along the lines of streetwear that resembles what we're familiar with, which starts us with just gonna throw this out here. The first 18 issues of Action Comics during the New 52 was probably one of the best Superman in his earlier stories ever. Probably because it was written by Grant Morrison. The everyman look of his jeans, boots, and t-shirt is a look that fits perfectly in the comic that's being told, which harkens back to Superman's first appearance in the original Action Comics, where he was a champion of the oppressed, and the first issue of New 52's Action Comics has him going after the rich and corrupt. Plus, it's the easiest Superman look to cosplay. Another early years look for Superman, the Blur, from the TV show Smallville. Look, as much as I like that show for the characterizations of Clark and Lex, the whole Clark going under the persona known as the Blur, yet running around with the S-shield in his chest was, well, kinda dumb. However, I will say that the black trench coat mimicking a cape is genius, and is way more simple and clever than that red leather jacket he had. This is probably the most plausible attire for someone with Superman's powers to operate without an actual Superman costume. Plus, it's the second easiest Superman look to cosplay. A lot of you are probably wondering, Tony, isn't this supposed to be a Superman video? Why is Batman on this list? Now, if you get your ass up and decide to read some Elseworlds, you know that this is actually Kal-El, but if you landed in Gotham and was adopted by the Waynes. And this was written by James DeMatteis, who wrote a little story for Spider-Man called Kraven's Last Hunt. The suit is the perfect amalgamation of the two characters, and even though Kal-El-Bruce gets another one when he actually becomes Superman, that one pales in comparison to his previous one, and only really changes personas to become a more lighthearted superhero after stopping Lex Luthor, who's also the Joker in this comic. And I'm pretty sure this guy was in a video with a hamburger.
Crazy hamburger! Crazy hamburger! This is horrible! Crazy hamburger! Crazy hamburger! Crazy hamburger!
Now this is a really underrated look. Coming from the Earth 2 comics that was part of the New 52, in a world where the Trinity was killed by Steppenwolf, the Wonders of the World recruit Val Zod to step up to become the next Superman to fight an evil clone of the original. Who would have thought white would be an amazing replacement for yellow in a Superman suit? Not to mention how the white and red blend perfectly, especially with the cape. Now I know we're all sick of multiverses and superhero movies, even to bring in characters that, to be frank, really don't need to come from a different universe in the first place, but it would be cool to see Val Zod and the rest of Earth 2 in a future movie. I have to confess here, this suit holds a lot of nostalgia for me just because I'd select this look whenever I'd play Superman in Injustice. Mainly because most of those skins didn't interest me, and I didn't want to play as Dictator Superman. And it's a shame since this was before Injustice 2, where in that game, alternate skins were mostly discarded in favor for gear pieces that came from mother boxes. Yeah, imagine telling Jack Kirby that. Oh wait, he died back in 1994. Yeah, kid, comics will break your heart. Anyways, this is a pretty tight looking design that ditches the blue for black and yellow for white. And this is probably the best Superman suit with a collar because of how his cape wraps around his shoulders. The scaled down S shield and the line symbols give the suit a more out of this world vibe with it, which makes sense given that the synopsis for Superman Godfall is that we follow Kal-El with no memories of his life as Superman living in this new and futuristic Krypton, which explains the Tron light cycle. I'm loving all of DC's new Absolute titles so far. Now don't get me wrong, the current Ultimate Spider-Man run by Jonathan Hickman is the one title that's keeping me a fan of that character. But those first 3 Absolute titles just ruptured my balls by how awesome they are. They're the best modernizations of each title character, and their designs heavily reflect that. Being a Superman that wasn't raised with the guidance of the Kents, and actually spent some of his childhood on Krypton, this suit is 100% alien, yet it totally reinvents what we're familiar with, but in a kick-ass way. Instead of a cape, the suit deploys a cloud of sunstone, and no, not the BDSM comic from Image, but a dust from Krypton that can basically do all the stuff Spawn's cape can do, but in a cooler and not so emo way. It has an AI named Saul, which could repair the suit on its own, going as far as reinforcing itself. Lastly, with the way the suit glows with its physical appearance, this Superman straight up looks like Clive Rossfield in Final Fantasy 16. Now, is Superman a character that should have battle armor lying around? No, not really. But is it one of the coolest things you've ever seen in a comic book and as an action figure? Abso-fucking-lutely. As someone who's played all the Yakuza games and learned how to cripple people in the middle of fights, seeing an alternate Superman wear a kimono with sunglasses is one of the most badass things I've ever seen. And I'm gonna say it, Batman Ninja vs. Yakuza League probably has the greatest take on a bad Superman ever, and my favorite fight between Batman and Superman. Come on, this is probably the second most recognizable Superman suit ever. It's crazy how 2 of the most iconic alternate superhero costumes are black and white variants. It's simple and it works. I'm going for the original rather than all the times it was adapted, since it wasn't just a simple palette swap of an existing suit. And something I've noticed about not just its live action appearances, but in later comic appearances is that the S-Shield isn't completely white. It's just the S part. So if anyone knows where I can get a t-shirt of the original recovery suit with the original S-Shields, please hit me up. I'll love you. Look, I don't want to get political, but this is actually pretty kick-ass. I'm just gonna say it out loud. Like, it's like the best look for a dictator Superman. Just look at it. It's like the most 90s thing ever, up there with whatever the hell Thor is wearing in Marvel vs. DC. So what I'm showing you right here is one of the suits Nicolas Cage was supposed to be wearing in the canceled Tim Burton Superman movie. And it looks awesome. Okay, I would so touch and wear that and do things in it.
Okay, in a nutshell, after losing his powers during Final Night and then gaining them again after being near the surface of the sun, Clark ends up becoming pure electric energy and needs a whole new suit just to maintain his physical form. And basically, he has all the powers Electro has in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. What makes this alternate look amazing is how it's drastically different from what we know as Superman, has a recognizable S-shield and hair, but it's simple and clean with the pattern, which is the key to making an iconic superhero design. Oh, and eventually a red Superman ends up coming out of this later on. I'm gonna be real, I would so rather have those powers over Superman's traditional ones. And no, it's not just because I want Livewire to sit in my face. This could just be the shonen fan inside of me, but I firmly believe that this design and abilities should have been a staple of the character. Not as a permanent form, but more like how Goku turned Super Saiyan. It'd definitely be a better use of Electric Blue than John Kent having it and not doing much with it in a story where he hugs Injustice Superman as a means of talking him out of being a dictator, which apparently takes place before the events of the main game, so
Anyone else?
good job in that. On the plus side, the electric powers seem to have been referenced in My Adventures with Superman, and hopefully we can get a rendition of that suit by season 3. Whew, man, all this talk of Superman suits makes me wish I had one of them. Oh god, the power of Marlon Brando is going inside of me! Oh my god. This is awesome. I am gonna hit up a host club now.